millions of years, this was the most terrifying weapon evolution ever built. A pair of curved blades, each one longer than your hand, growing straight out of a predator's skull. The animal that carried them ruled the Americas. It feared nothing. And then, in the blink of a geological eye, it was gone. Every last one of them. This is the story of the sabre-toothed cat. The story of the most magnificent killing tool in the history of mammals, and of the terrible trap hidden inside it. Because the very weapon that made this cat a king is also the reason it no longer exists. In our last journey, we followed the house cat back through 50 million years of evolution. We traced the cat family to a single crossroads, an ancient animal called Pseudialurus, where the bloodline split in two. One branch led to every cat alive today. The other branch led here. It led to a dynasty of predators so specialized, so extreme, that they look almost unreal. We call them the sabre-toothed cats, and almost everything you think you know about them is probably wrong. They were not tigers. They were not even close relatives of the tiger. They were not a single species, but many, and their famous fangs were not quite the unstoppable weapon they appear to be. To understand the sabre-toothed cat, we have to look closely at the blade and at the gamble that came with it. The name saber-toothed tiger is one of the most stubborn mistakes in natural history. The most famous saber-tooth, Smilodon, was not a tiger at all. It branched away from the ancestors of modern cats millions of years ago and evolved down a completely separate path. And Smilodon was only the final chapter. The saber-toothed cats were an entire subfamily, the Machairodontinae, and they thrived for a span of time almost too long to imagine. Lineage after lineage of long-fanged cats rose and fell across the continents, ruling ecosystems for millions upon millions of years. Smilodon itself appeared around 2.5 million years ago and spread across North and South America, the largest of them. Smilodon populator of the South American plains could weigh up to 400 kilograms, heavier than any cat that walks the earth today. This was not a scaled-up tiger. This was something else entirely. Now, the fangs. In the largest saber-tooths, the upper canine teeth could reach 28 centimeters in length, far longer than a human hand. They were not simple spikes. They were flattened, curved, and in some species finely serrated along the edge, like a steak knife. But here is the secret that changes everything. Those magnificent teeth were fragile. Long and thin, they were built to slice through soft flesh. And they could snap if they struck heavy bone. A saber-tooth could not simply bite down on a struggling animal and hope for the best. One wrong move, and its irreplaceable weapon was gone. Its bite, too, was surprisingly weak. A modern lion bites down with far greater force than Smilodon ever could. What the saber-tooth had instead was reach. It could open its jaws to an astonishing angle, over 110 degrees, nearly twice the gape of a lion, swinging those long blades clear to drive them deep. So the saber teeth were not a brute force tool. They were a precision instrument, a surgeon's blade, not a hammer. And a precision instrument only works if the conditions are exactly right. Hold that thought. It is the
sabre-toothed
key
cat
to
stalks its
everything
prey.
that
The
follows.
massive ground sloth,
If the
however,
fangs
remains
were
oblivious to the
fragile
danger
and the
hidden in the
bite
tall
was
grass.
weak,
Here,
how
in the
did this
vast tundra
animal
of the
kill?
Ice Age, these
The answer
magnificent
was the
beasts
rest of
roam
its body.
freely, constantly
Smilodon
searching
was
for
not
food.
built for the chase.
In the
It was
Permian,
built
the
for raw,
Gorgonopsid ruled with
overwhelming
terrifying
power.
fangs.
Its front
Millions of
legs
years
were
later,
immensely
the Smilodon
muscular,
the
its
Nimravid,
shoulders
a
and
false
neck
sabre-tooth,
enormous.
stalks the
A
dense,
saber-tooth
ancient
did
forest,
not run
its
its prey
eyes
down.
fixed on
It
unseen
ambushed,
prey.
exploding
In the
from
misty
cover,
forests of
slamming
ancient
into a
South
large
America,
animal,
the
and using
Thylacosmilus
that
reigns
tremendous
supreme.
strength to wrestle the victim to the ground and pin it completely still. Only then, with the prey immobilized,
From the icy
could it
mammoth
safely
steppe of North
deliver
America
a
to the
single,
dense
deep,
forests of Europe,
precise,
the scimitar-toothed
killing bite
cat
to the soft
reigns
tissue of the throat.
supreme.
And it
The
may
arrival
not
of the
have
Homo
hunted
therium
alone.
creates a tense
At
standoff.
sites like the La
Though different
Brea tar
lineages,
pits in
they share this
California,
precious resource.
saber-tooth fossils have been found with terrible injuries, broken bones, shattered hips that had healed. An injured solitary hunter starves. An injured animal that healed was likely an animal that was fed
The
and
warming
protected by
climate is
others.
changing everything.
The saber-toothed cat
The great
may well
herds of
have
the
lived
mammoths are beginning to
and
thin out.
hunted in groups. For an immense stretch of time, this strategy was a triumph. The saber-toothed cats were the apex predators of their world, hunting the great slow-moving giants of the age, ancient bison, primitive horses, young mammoths, and the massive ground sloths. The design worked so well that evolution built it again and again. The saber-tooth was not a one-off accident. Different cat lineages independently grew long fangs. A separate family of cat-like carnivores, the Nimravids, the so-called false saber-tooths, evolved nearly the same weapon long before Smilodon. And then there is the strangest case of all. In ancient South America lived a predator called Thylacosmilus. It had the long saber fangs. It had the powerful build. It hunted exactly as a saber-toothed cat did. But it was not a cat. It was not even a placental mammal. It was a marsupial, a closer relative of the kangaroo and the opossum. Evolution, on a separate continent, working with completely different raw material, arrived at the very same answer. When nature finds a solution this good, it reaches for it over and over. The saber-tooth was not a fluke. It was one of evolution's favorite designs. So how does a design this successful, this proven, this favored, vanish completely? Around the end of the last ice age, the world changed. The climate warmed and shifted, and the great megafauna, the giant, slow herbivores that had fed saber-toothed cats for millions of years, began to disappear, pressured by that changing climate and, very likely, by the spread of skilled human hunters. For most predators, this was a crisis. For the saber-toothed cat, it was a death sentence. Remember the blade. Remember the precision. The saber-tooth was the ultimate specialist, a predator perfectly engineered to kill very large, very slow animals. Its fragile fangs, its grappling forelimbs, its ambush and pin strategy. Every part of it was tuned for big, powerful prey. When that prey vanished, the saber-tooth could not simply switch targets. It could not chase down small, fast, nimble animals it was never built to. A general-purpose predator, like the cougar, could adapt, hunt smaller game, and survive. The saber-tooth could not bend, and so, around 10,000 years ago, the last of them died, and the long dynasty of the knife-toothed cats came to an end. This is the trap hidden inside the blade. Specialization is a gamble. To become the perfect tool for one job, you
The
give
deep
up the
impression
ability
left
to
in the
do
fresh
every
snow
other job.
tells the story
While
of a
the
heavy
world
predator
stays the same,
passing through in
the
early morning
specialist
hours.
is king. But the world never stays the same forever. The sabre-toothed cat was not destroyed
The
by
sabre-tooth,
weakness.
a
It
relic
was
of a colder
destroyed by
age,
its own
must drink
perfection.
carefully from the
Its
icy
fangs
stream.
were a masterpiece, and a masterpiece built for a world that was about to end. Meanwhile, the other branch of that ancient split, the
The Ice Age
unremarkable,
tundra at
flexible,
golden hour.
generalist cats
A herd of
carried
woolly
on.
mammoths begins their
One of
long
them, in
migration
time,
across
would
a thick
curl
coat
up
is
on your
essential for
sofa.
survival. But even the
If
mighty
this
saber-tooth
journey
must
through
clear
deep
the
time
accumulating snow
was
to
worth your
maintain
while,
insulation against the deep
consider
cold.
subscribing. Next time on Evolved Story, we turn to the lost giants themselves. The mammoths,
These
the
faint
ground
images of
sloths,
mammoths and
the
bison
woolly
are among the
rhinos,
oldest
the
art
enormous
known to
beasts
man,
of the Ice
hidden
Age,
deep
and the
within the
great
earth.
dying that swept them all away. What were these giants, and could the largest of them have been saved? Until then, remember the blade and the gamble. In evolution, being perfect is the most dangerous thing of all.